Hello, welcome to Gallery Talks. My guest today is Lisa Goren. I'm Betsy Walker. And Lisa has the current show at the Media Center here. And it's called, let's see, Ice?
Antarctica?
Antarctica, Ice, and Whalebones, right? Although maybe you could tell us a little about that. So you're inspired, actually, by ice. And I mean, that inspired you to watercolor to begin with, right?
Well, I had always been interested in Antarctica and other polar regions, but specifically Antarctica from when I was 15,
How come?
13 years old. I don't know. There's a place that talks to everyone. Antarctica was the place that spoke to me. And I went to Antarctica. I didn't know that you could go to Antarctica as a tourist. I thought you had to work
either.
And then I found out that you could actually from the little ads in the New Yorker. If you see, there's on the little side of the page, and they said Antarctica, and I literally called one of those, found out that I could go.
I thought you had to work on a boat in a scientific project or something to get there even.
Well, it's expensive to get there, and you can't stay there unless you have specific permission. So
stay there. There aren't hotels.
No. So you stay on the boat.
On the boat, right.
It's like an eco tour, like you hear about Alaskan cruises, or those, or cruises up in the northern waters. It's just that Antarctica is more difficult to get to, and it's obviously very forbidding. So I found out that I could go, and then I did. I saved up my money. I went, and I knew when I was going that I wanted to paint pictures of the ice. I don't know why I knew that.
Interesting.
I just love ice, and I think it's so beautiful. And water in general,
it is beautiful.
Is amazing.
Water is, and it changes so.
Yeah, there's a big show on it actually in the Museum of Natural History in New York right now. But water and how its importance to our planet, and the fact that ice floats is a very unusual part of that element of water, or not the element of water, but
the glaciers are melting,
molecules.
And we're going to be in big trouble if they don't. I don't know why they can't cut hunks of glaciers and drop them in some of these dry lake beds and things in other places. If they could manage to do that.
They're pretty heavy.
Well, true, but with new science.
By the time you pay for the gas to move a glacier,
anyway, let's not get away from your art. So you got up there. Did you actually start working on the watercolors on the boat?
I did paint while I was there, and you do get off the boat, weather permitting.
You get off.
You get off the boat and you go and explore. You have little trips, depending
on foot?
On foot, yeah. You walk around.
Is there snow there?
Yes, there's snow and glaciers. I was there in the summer, which is February. And the temperature is about 30, 35 degrees. I was up, if you imagine that Antarctica is at the bottom of the world, there's like a thumb that sticks up. It's called the Antarctic Peninsula.
Right.
And I went onto the peninsula. That's called Maritime Antarctica when you're on the coast there.
Right.
And it's a little bit more temperate.
I see.
So if you can imagine going there in the summer, I left in February.
Were there a bunch of people with you? I mean,
there were probably about 40 people, 50 people on the trip. There are bigger trips, smaller trips.
Do they have trails?
No.
Or you just get out and walk on it's flat?
No, it's not flat.
No.
But you go out and walk, and you can walk on the beach, and you can go in. Sometimes you go and visit scientific stations, depending on.
Do they have sand on the beach?
Some, yes. It's mostly rocky. There's a lot of volcanic activity, so there's some volcanic rocks. People do go, when you're on the boat, there are a lot of people who are going to Antarctica for different reasons. You don't go there unless you really want to.
Unless you have a reason to go.
And many people on the boat were geologists. Like, that was very interesting to them.
That's what you would think.
So, but it's very, very large. I mean, you cannot imagine the scale of Antarctica. It's so big and so beautiful.
Wow.
And I think that people who go to Alaska feel some of the same things. It's just strikingly different and beautiful and clean, and it's amazing.
Big sky, right?
Amazing. And the sky constantly changing. It's a very stormy environment. If the water, here's your thing of Antarctica again, this part of the ocean, it's the only part of the world where the ocean can go all the way around.
Wow.
So it's quite rough. And when you're coming down, you're hitting the the Atlantic and Pacific convergence.
Wow.
So where they meet,
it's not
always a pleasant boat ride.
Wow.
So, but so anyway, I went down there, and the reason I went was to see ice and to paint it. And when I was painting there, again, it was in the 30s, so the water didn't freeze, and it was fine. But I felt that
there was plenty of ice to look at still.
There was plenty of ice to look at. I felt that I wanted to see more than sit in one place and paint. So I took a lot of photos, and the paintings I have were just really sketches. They didn't take that long.
Did you do them out on the place or back in the?
Both on the boat
both, yeah.
and on land. You have to take Antarctica is a place where you can't leave anything there. So, for example, the water I used had to go in a water bottle, and I couldn't spill it out. You know, you have to, because they want to keep it as pristine as possible. So, you know, I take back the dirty water.
Something you wouldn't even think about.
Right, but they're like, you know, you can't
dump out your cup of coffee that you didn't finish on the ground.
Bad idea.
Isn't that interesting? So it really suggests a certain palette too, doesn't it?
Well, it's funny because most people think of Antarctica as black and white. There's black penguins and white ice.
I think of it as lavender and white.
Well, there you go. You're already a little bit more advanced, and of course, since March of the Penguins and since other films, people have seen some of those blues. There's a lot of people, that's just been more popular stuff.
See the penguins.
Yeah, to see the penguins. And I found that I went there also not expecting a real range of color, and I ended up being really surprised. The one roll I brought of black and white film was the worst roll I took because it's so colorful there.
Yeah, and it wouldn't catch. Oh, I imagine it's like catching rainbows in the prisms of the ice.
I mean, there were so many colors. From the kelp on the shore, there would be a place where there'd be hundreds of elephant seals all around.
Now, were they afraid of you?
Well, you don't get that close because they're not afraid of you. And so if you're in their way, they move faster than you'd think for something that big. But you look at them. I mean, I've never seen that many browns. They're just, each one is more beautiful than the next. They're mottled in colors, or they have one or two colors. I mean, it's just, you couldn't create that palette yourself.
Boy, isn't that fascinating?
Amazingly beautiful. So the seals were one color, the penguins were, I mean, they weren't really black. They were a little bit blacky blue and the white, and of course the baby penguins are brown. They have a little brown fuzz, and then there's plants that grow in maritime Antarctica in the summer, and so there's mostly very, very low growing moss, lichen, a little bit of grasses. Not a ton, but all of those things add colors that you don't expect.
Sure.
I certainly go through blue as a color when I buy it.
Sure.
More than almost any other color, but I've been surprised by some of the things I've seen and some of the colors that existed.
Because with all that light too, talking about light, it reflects off the ice, I imagine.
And it's constantly changing. There's clouds. You could have a sky that's stormy on one side and sunny on the next, and 10 minutes later it's switched.
Let's talk about some of the paintings you brought with you today.